Today we're going to talk about just factoring trinomials. Now, here's the kind of cool thing about factoring a trinomial. If the trinomial has a greatest common factor, we're still going to take it out, right? But because we know how to factor four terms by grouping, we are going to take our three terms and turn them into four terms using the sum to be the middle and the product to be the first times the last. We're going to find two numbers to take and expand that middle value. Okay, also I want you guys to be able to factor using a box if you would like to, so we're going to go over that as well. So we'll do factor by grouping and factor using the box just to keep going. All right, so we're looking at this, and this is the first example, and it only has three terms. So we don't have a greatest common factor because the smallest number is 3, and all of those terms don't have a 3 in them. So now what we're going to do is we're going to try to factor by grouping, which means we have to expand this to 4 terms. So this middle negative 5x will turn into 2 terms. They don't have to be positive, but I always put plus because I'm going to put parentheses up. So how do I find what I'm going to put there, right? And so you can see kind of here that we're going to expand it. Well, we know that it has to multiply to the first times the last. So you can actually write down what 3 times 28 is if you want, and you guys can write 84 down there. Or you can just write 3 times 28 because sometimes we break it down. So we're going to try to multiply to this and add to a negative 5. Well, this is negative 84. So if I'm negative and I'm multiplying, it means I have to have one positive and one negative. Well, I don't know about you, but 84 isn't like the most perfect number that I know right off the bat. And that's why I was getting back to the fact that you could have left it as 3 times 28 and then kept going, because 28 minus 3 is not 5. You could have taken this 28 and broken it down to 4 times 7. Right? And so, and then 4 could be 2 and 2. But really, right now, when we look at 4 times 7, we see 12 and 7, whose difference is 5. So as we break these down, we notice that we do have a factor, which is 12 and 7, that would work out here. So, of course, they're supposed to be adding to a negative 5x. So this has to be negative 12x and a positive 7x. And here's a little hint, you guys. If you can put the positive number second, right? If you have a positive and a negative number, so I'm putting negative 12x here, and I'm putting 7x here. Okay, so let's go ahead and factor by grouping. We have that plus sign, so we can put these back up. And now we're going to look for greatest common factors. So the greatest common factor, let me get this a little bit bigger for you, of this is 3x. And we're left with x minus 4. And the greatest common factor of this, since 7x is positive, we can take a 7 out. So this is a positive 7, and then we have x minus 4. And then we look at the whole thing, and we see that they both have an x minus 4. So we factor an x minus 4 out. And we're left with the leftovers, which is 3x plus 3. So those are the factors. 3x plus 7, not 3. I wrote 3, but it's supposed to be 7. Okay, cool. So those would be the factors. Now let's talk about what would we do if we were doing the same thing using the box. Okay, well, we have to put the values that we know. So our values that we know, we have 3x squared is the first term, and negative 28 is the last term. And then we knew our fill-in terms were going to be negative 12x. It doesn't matter which one goes where, and 7x. So now what we're going to do is we're going to factor the rows. So when we factor the row here, we see that this is positive, so we'll be taking a positive out, and we'll be taking a positive 3x. We'll factor this row right here, and 7x is positive, so we're going to have a positive 7 coming out of there. So now we're going to go up the column, and so 3x is positive, so we would end up with a positive x. And then we would go up the column, and negative 12 is negative, so we're going to end up with a negative. And what's in common between a 12 and a 28? It's a 4. So you can see that we got the same exact factors, 3x plus 7 and x minus 4. So I don't really care which way you do it. I don't need to mandate a different way to do it. You guys can do this any way that you want, but if you're not having success factoring by grouping, you might want to try the box. All right, let's go to the next one. Yikes. I'm good. All right, so the next thing that we have again a leading coefficient that is not 1. So we're always going to check that, and we don't have anything in common. So what are we going to do? We're going to expand this 17x. We're going to expand that 17x. But the way we expand it is we take the first times the last, and we put 60x squared here. Notice here I'm actually using the x's, but as long as you keep track of the like term in the middle, you don't really have to use the x's. And we're going to multiply to that, and our two numbers are going to add to 17x because we're expanding 17x, so it has to add to 17x. Now, you would want to break 60 down, and honestly, when you take 60, 6 times 10, that's not going to work, right? But if I took 6 times 10, I might actually be able to see something else that might work. And I don't know if you guys see this, but I see 12 and 5. So I'm going to have 12x and 5x as what I'm going to expand. So they're both positive, so it doesn't matter which one goes where. And technically it doesn't matter which one goes where. It's just a little easier to put the positive one last. So this is 12x and this is 5x. And now we're going to factor by grouping. So we group the first one and we group the second group. And out of this one, we'll be able to factor a 6x, and we get x plus 2. Out of this one, we'll be able to factor a 5, and we get x plus 2. And that's really special because now we're going to be able to factor out an x plus 2 because they both have that. And our leftovers are going to be 6x plus 5. So those are my factors. Now again, remember, we don't have to do it using factor by grouping. We could take our first terms and our last term and put it in, and then we take our magic numbers, our 12x and our 5x, and put it here. And then we can do the rows. They're all positive, so we're just going to take positives out. 6x, 5, and then we'll do the column. X and 2. And so we have 6x plus 5 and x plus 2. Yay, same exact factors. It doesn't matter which way you do it, you guys. It just doesn't matter. So totally up to you. Hopefully you guys are pausing and then trying these and then going back and seeing how you did. Again, our middle term that we're going to expand is negative 65. So we're going to be adding to a negative 65x. Okay? And I'll use the x's in this case. We're going to be multiplying the 7 and the 18. Now we're going to make a huge number, you guys. And so there's really no reason to create that number. We can really just do 7 times 18 and just keep breaking it down. 2 times 9, 3 times 3. So up here I have a 7, a 2, a 3, and a 3. And I need to be getting that product, which means I use all of those factors. But when I add these two things together, it needs to be negative 65. So since my product is positive, I'm either going to use a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative. So definitely we're going to have a negative times a negative. And now we need to make a pretty good size number, right? So we need to make a pretty good size number. So we might need to like put all the big guys in one bucket and a little guy over here. So on this side we would get 63. And on this side, we get a 2. And when we add those together, we would get a negative 65. Now, they're both negative, so it doesn't really matter. And we would have the x, right? Because we have a common term. It doesn't matter which one goes where because they're both negative. So if we put negative 63 here and negative 2x here, and we're ready to factor by grouping. So in this one, we have a 7x in common, and we're going to be left with x minus 9. In this one, because this guy is negative, we're going to be taking a negative 2 out, and we're going to be left with x minus 9. And then that allows us to see that we have x minus 9 in common, and our leftover is going to be 7x minus 2. Excellent. So how would this look if we did it in our box? Well, we would still put the first term here and the last term here, and we would put our terms that we found, our negative 63x and our negative 2x, but we see that our edges are going to be negative on those, so we'll be taking negative numbers out. So we'll go rows. This row, the 7 is positive, so we take out a positive 7x. Here we're going to have in common a 2, but the 2 is negative, so it would be negative 2. And then we go up the column, and so they both have an x, and 7x squared is positive, so we take a positive out. And here they both have a 9, but the negative 63, the edge guy, is negative, so it's going to be a negative 9 we take out. And we get 7x minus 2 and x minus 9, same exact factor. Let's do example 4. Now remember the first step is to take out a greatest common factor if you can see it, and they all are even. So we can take out a 2. And so if we took out a 2, we would have 8x squared plus 26x minus 45. Okay, let's see if we can take out anything else. Well, since 8's only made of 2's, then we can't take anything else out. So at the end of the day, we're going to have a 2 in front of our factor. So we have to know that even though we're going to continue to break down this guy, we need to make sure that we remember we took that 2 out. Okay, so here we're going to add to 26x, and our product is going to be 8 times 45, and it's negative. So that means positive and a negative. Let's break that 8 and 45 down. So when I look at 8, I'm going to have 2 times 2 times 2, and then this guy is 5 times 9, which is 3 times 3. So I have to use all of these things. So 5, and then 2, 2, 2, 3, 3. I have to use all of them in the 2 buckets. And so that's why my product is going to be this. And obviously we still have x squared, right? So let's see what we would get. We need a bigger number than 26 because we're going to have a difference of 26. And so let's see what kind of bigger number that we can get. We can see that if we use this, we would have 40, but 40 minus 9 isn't going to work, right? Let's see if we can do something a little bit different, not too high. Let's see if we did 9 times 4 is 36. 9 times 4 is 36, and then we have 10. Oh, 36 and 10 is definitely going to work. And we want our 26 to be positive, so that means we'll have 36 over here and 10 that we're subtracting off. So let's write this out. We have our first term, which is 8x. Remember, x squared. Remember that we are doing the factored form of that, meaning like that we've already taken a 2 out. That makes our life way easier. And so here we would have 8x squared and negative 45. Okay, cool. And so our 2 values that we had were 36 and negative 10. I'm going to make my life a little bit easier by putting negative 10 first. It doesn't really matter. It just makes less errors. And so negative 10x and then 36x. Okay, cool. So now we'll do it on this side, factor by grouping. We can see that we'll have a 2 in common and an x. So we'll end up with 4x minus 5. And then on this one, the 36 is positive. So we will take out a 9. and we'll end up with 4x minus 5. And so we'll be able to take a 4x minus 5 out. Sorry, this is so delayed. And then we'll be left with 2x plus 9. Okay, but we have to remember that too. So when we write our factors, we have the 2 in front. Okay, cool. All right, let's see how that would have played out with our box. Well, oops, I didn't want to erase that. So going to the row, we see that we had a 2x in common, and the 8 was positive, so we kept that. And in this row, we had a 9 common, and the 36x was positive, so we ended up with 2x plus 9. And then we go the column, and we'll see that we both have a 4 and an x, and 8x is positive, so that'll be positive. And in this one, we'll see that we have 5, but since negative 10x is negative, we're going to take a negative 5 out, only because the guy on the edge was negative. And so we're going to have 4x minus 5, which is exactly what we needed. Okay, perfect. Have a good day. Don't forget those greatest common factors.